Greetings and blessed day to you once again, people of God. It's the Revelator once again. And hoping the grace and the mercy of our Lord Jesus Christ is with you until the end of time. We are meeting once again in this exclusive series presentation. A series presentation that is regarded controversial, but not controversial in the spirit, but realistic. And I'm talking about the fatal seduction, a level of seduction that leads you into eternal damnation, a level of seduction that is beyond sexual fantasies, but a level of seduction that is capable of leading you to a level of eternal death. And I'm praying once again in this part 2 presentation of the fatal seduction that the Spirit of truth that has been guiding you in every presentation series gives you the spirit of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding as the word is being preached. Now, earlier on in the fatal seduction 1, I explained about how the spirit of lust is able to drown one to his or her own destruction. And I explained a scripture that is in Matthew chapter 5 verse 30, where I said, and if the right hand offends you, cut it off and cast it from you, for it is profitable for you that one of your members should perish than for your whole body to be cast into hell. In that scenario, I was explaining a situation whereby you would think that losing an eye or losing a hand is unprofitable until you realize the level of danger, the level of destruction that this level of seduction will lead you unto, which is beyond sexual fantasy, but the destruction of the whole body, which is beyond the eye that can be plucked out or the hand that can be cut off. Welcome to the fatal seduction presentation, which is now part 2. Let's go to the book of Matthew chapter 5 verse 32 as we continue. And Jesus says, but I say unto you that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery. Whosoever shall put his wife away for any petty reason, which is not the reason of that same wife having fornicated, has caused that wife to fornicate. Now, these are mysteries in scriptures that the Revelator is supposed to be able to solve, so that understanding can be shed as light. How do I cause my wife to commit adultery? By divorcing her or separating her for reasons that do not concern adultery or fornication. What it means is that if I separate from my wife for reasons that do not concern her cheating me, for reasons that do not concern her committing adultery, I've caused her to commit adultery in the sense that she is no longer married to me in the physical, but in the spirit she is still married to me. Why? Because the law that was supposed to separate us is not applying. The law that was supposed to separate us only applies when she has committed adultery. But I went ahead to divorce her when she did not commit any sin that authorizes me to separate her. And by virtue of us being one flesh, we are already married in the spirit. By virtue of us being one flesh, we are already joined to become one. And by virtue of us being one flesh, it means somehow our souls, they are tied by virtue of us having joined our spirits during sexual intimacy as married couples. But then I went and committed adultery, I myself. It's an example. I never said I committed adultery, to those listeners that are ignorant. Then I went and committed adultery. And when I committed adultery, I've opened a sex demonic portal that allows demons of sexual immorality to enter inside our union. And when they entered inside our union, they get married to my wife who is already married to my spirit. They get married to my wife who is already joined to me as a husband. This is why so many times when I'm driving out demons, you hear a demon saying, "This is my wife." Or you hear a demon saying, "This is my husband." It's either a spiritual husband or a spiritual wife. But all this that is now happening, which I'm explaining in this cycle of sexual immorality, it has been caused by a man that has merely lusted for a certain woman outside wedlock. You lust for a certain woman outside wedlock. After lusting for a certain woman outside wedlock, you believe that you have just merely been seduced. And this is nothing that your wife can ever know. Why? Because you have merely been seduced and you did not do anything. But you don't realize that after being seduced, there are scenarios of events that are going to follow. And the scenarios of events that will follow afterwards, they will draw you to commit a sinful act that is called adultery. Why? Because you are married. But now, let's talk about the stage before one even commits adultery. Let's talk about a married man that has been seduced. And after being seduced, you carry a certain presence that has already proven in the spirit that you have committed a sin of lusting for another woman while you are married to another woman. And you go back home to your wife, to another woman. And when you go back home to your wife, who is the other woman that you are permanently married to, you engage into a sexual fantasy, or you become intimate with your wife. And while you are getting intimate with your wife, you are still carrying imaginations of another woman that you got seduced. Now, I need you to understand, when this level of seduction has caused you to carry an imaginary fantasy of that same woman back home to your wife, you are no longer having sex only with your wife, but you're now having a threesome with your wife and the spirit that entered you while you were being seduced by another woman outside wedlock. I'm talking about the Fatal Seduction, part 2. What I thought is that you merely got seduced, and after you got seduced, it was just a minor, it was just a petty matter. Why? Because you did not do anything. But there is something critical that has happened. Why? Because your mind has been drawn away from your real wife. Your mind is now engaging into sexual activities using the visuals inside your imaginations. The visuals inside your imaginations, they are bringing images and pictures of a woman that is not your wife, or they are bringing images and pictures of another man that is not your husband. Like I said, Fatal seduction is not only critically against males only, it also operates against females. Why? Because we've got females that are cheating their husbands, married women who are not loyal and faithful. And in this case, the reference is of a man that goes ahead to then divorce his wife without his wife being involved in any form of adultery. But now, you are engaging your wife into adultery by bringing the presence of lust that has entered you through you being seduced, through you looking at a woman lustfully, and then you become intimate with your wife, and your wife gets possessed by a sex demon, as if your wife ever cheated you, as if your wife was part of some kind of adultery that you yourself committed, yet she was never involved. And your wife begins to encounter spiritual husbands, spiritual wives, and it becomes a threesome sex affair in the spirit. What is happening there? There are now 3 demons that are having sex. The 3 demons that are having sex, let me explain to you how these demons entered. The first demon entered through the fatal seduction dimension, the dimension of seduction that led you into a critical position where lust entered you through enticement. And the second sexual demon has entered your wife by you having sex with your wife. That is the second demon. And the third demon is the demon that oversees the sexual, intimate, unlawful affairs. The demons that enter the moment that you cheat. Even when you cheat with your senses, even when you cheat in your thoughts, you have cheated. You have cheated in the sense that everything happens from within the mind. And again, by the times of old, Moses would declare them to merely write a certificate of divorcement for matters that regard any man that wants to separate from his wife. But Jesus then comes and says, if you divorce your wife for any petty reason, which is not this reason of her committing adultery, you have caused that woman to commit adultery. It means the third sexual demon is causing your wife to also commit adultery, in as much as there is a demon that opened a sex demonic portal by causing you to get seduced in a fatal way. The fatal part is that you were caused to bring more sexual demons into your marriage, while you are not aware. Now, how is this case very fatal? And how fatal is it, and to what extent? In the book of Galatians chapter 5 verse 16, this then I say, walk in the spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. When you walk in the spirit, it means you are walking not in ignorance. You are walking, making sure that your eyes are wide open in the spirit, not in the physical. In the spirit and not in the flesh. You make sure that your eyes are not drawn into certain lustful activities. This is why you need to flee away from sin. When the scriptures tell you to flee away from sin, the scriptures give you the energy that is necessary inside your spirit to escape danger. Flee from sexual immorality. When you flee from sexual immorality, You are running away from seduction. You don't flee from sexual immorality before you get drawn by the spirit of lust. You don't flee from sexual immorality before you are seduced. You can only flee when you have realized that this is danger. This is a danger sign. Walk in the spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusts against the spirit. How does the flesh lust against the spirit? Fatal seduction. Here is how it is fatal. It is fatal in the sense that your flesh is no longer lusting for sexual related subjects, but your flesh is now lusting contrary against your spirit. Your flesh is now rebelling against your spirit, meaning that there is a level of a fatal seduction, a seducing attraction that can cause you not to just lust to have sex, but a fatal seduction that can seduce you to the level of rebelling against your own spirit desires. And what are your spirit desires? Your spirit desires are the desires of word meditation. Your spirit desires are the desires of engaging into divine activities. Your spirit desires are the desires of leading you into the gospel of truth. Your spirit desires, they are not the desires of your flesh that has been led into the suicidal seduction, into the suicidal, fatal, extreme dimension of being misled to the level that you lust against your spirit. But there is a level where your flesh lusts against the spirit and the spirit against the flesh. And when the spirit lusts against the flesh, it means that the spirit is resisting the flesh. When the spirit is lusting against the flesh, and not the flesh against the spirit, but the spirit against the flesh, the spirit that is lusting against the flesh, it is lusting for the things that are positive, which the flesh is not interested in. Why? Because your flesh has been seduced by fatal dangers. Fatal means death. Fatal means suicidal. Fatal means critical. And this level of seduction that has caused you to be drawn away, to be drifted away, to swerve away from the presence of God, it is no longer a seduction, child of God. You are no longer being seduced. You are now being led into a very dangerous path. And this dangerous path that you are being led to, child of God, it is a very dangerous path that is contrary to your spirit life. There's nothing sensitive more than your spirit life. You need to guard against any lust of the flesh that can seduce your flesh and distract your spirit life. Why? Because your spirit is the spiritual body that is going to enter the next dimension of life, or the next dimension of eternal fire. And this next dimension of eternal fire, you can only enter it once the level of seduction is not only critical, but once the level of seduction is fatal. I'm talking about the fatal seduction, part 2, in the name of Jesus.